Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. I hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. It's all going on right now in the Call of Duty scene. Boston Breach have confirmed their roster for 2023. Meanwhile, Infinity Ward have responded to the complaint about the beta from last weekend and have effectively said we're not changing anything going forwards. But there is one small potential good change in the midst as well. Very much enjoy your thoughts in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you are new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that one. Here we go then, Boston Breach. They've been teasing this for ages, and finally they're actually going to do it. Now, just to say this, because last night Hitch hadn't done the follow-up tweet when I was recording the video, but yes, the Cold War throwback tournament, it was meant to be on tonight, and all the pro teams, or at least all the pros, had found players to play with or whatever. I believe Hitch usually partners up with an organisation called Boom TV or something to put these put these tournaments on. Now, for whatever reason, Activision has said that they, I think Blake explained this on stream to the effect that like Boom TV did something wrong, or like at least against Activision's like protocol or whatever when submitting this tournament or something along those lines, and Activision has said like effectively out of, well, not exactly out of spite, but just to kind of say, look, you guys don't do that again type thing or whatever. Or maybe you just decided to terminate the entire relationship they have and have said, yes, Boom TV, we're not happy with you guys anymore, you're not allowed to run this tourney. So that means that this great tourney that we were going to have with all the pro players, and Hitch I'm sure has put a lot of work into making this happen, has now been postponed by Activision and maybe just straight up cancelled by Activision, because if they want to actually run this, they might have to find another partner to actually put on the tournament. So, I mean, yeah, just another classic Activision L, to be honest. We saw they did catch one W yesterday with starting the season earlier, but they have to follow it up immediately with an L. So it is what it is. We'll see another small W later today, though, but it's obviously rather frustrating. Hopefully Hitch can get this figured out, because I was certainly looking forward to seeing how it would go. Let's talk, though, the Boston Breach team. This has been now officially confirmed. Nero, Vivid, Methods, and Awakening is the new fourth man on the team. Of course, we have expected this to be the case for quite some time. Nero, Vivid staying on from last season, Methods staying as the many are now, Awakening instead of TJ. This to me is like a straight up small upgrade of the roster, to be honest. Like, I think Awakening over TJ in that role should be better. Can this team get the best out of Awakening? That's a question. I do think he plays much better Awake in that flex role. Like last year, Florida were trying to force him onto a full-time SMG. He didn't want to do it. He was very clear about that on the timeline, that he wasn't trying to run an SMG. He was just being forced to by the team because they had too many ARs effectively. So Wake is now in the flex role where I think he's most comfortable, and it is best. I generally think he's like such an incredibly highly skilled player. Like his ceiling is really high, Awakening, and I'm not exactly surprised other teams didn't go for him, but I do think that he's a great pickup here by the Boston Breach. Now the question is really there to me is that with Nero, Vivid, I think these guys have still got a fair bit to learn in terms of being a good SMG partnership. At their best, like they're such an aggressive duo, they can really work well. Like they were causing havoc at the end of last season, but I think they might need a bit more direction, and that's why when this team was initially being formed, I was wondering, okay, does it make sense to bring another AR in with a bit more pedigree of, you know, teaching younger players and building them up a little bit? Because Method's a very solid, serviceable AR, but you know, if you were to bring Clayster in it, Clay statistically might be a bit worse than Methods, but could he potentially bring more out of these guys? Nero, Vivid, Awakening, I think that's a question you might ask. So, of course, they made the decision in the end to stick by Methods. I think it's a sensible one, but is it maybe that the highest upside decision? Not necessarily, right? I think this is a kind of low risk, reasonable-ish rewards type team that gets better probably 10% on last year, but isn't exactly still a spectacular squad. I don't think this squad gets incredibly better. I do like their SMG duo. I like the Awakening move. I like keeping Methods, but like, look, last year they were at the end of the season really where they ended up, right? It was probably where they kind of belonged, about the top 8 range. Is this team doing that much better than top 8 this year? I'd say, you know, maybe they sneak into the top 6, right? And obviously last year at times they were, you know, getting good results, top 3s, top 4s, but largely that was just on beating teams below them in the standings, and they would always get smoked by the top dogs. I think it's going to be a similar trend this season, and there are many teams on paper that I think are better than this team. So I like what Boston are doing. They've taken a small step forward from year 1 to year 2. I do like the change, but I think if they really want to get serious about, you know, actually trying to win events and stuff, because of course they've got their home events back at Major 2, then, you know, down the line they might have to consider, you know, further moves, swapping out maybe an SMG, or, you know, who knows what they're going to do. But if they want to really win events, they're probably going to have to do more than this. But I like the way that Boston have dealt with their first season and then built on that for year 2. So good stuff for the Boston Breach camp. Also, though, and this is one of the other points, of course, is that Beans is now seemingly going to be their substitute player, like one of the top prospects from the European Challenger scene in their kind of announcement here. This is it file. If you put this into, I mean, yeah, Crone's absolutely out of control. You just love to see the detectives in the COD scene put it into a kind of, you know, binary code generator, translator, whatever, comes out with Beans. So yeah, fair play, good stuff. Probably Beans is going to be their sub. Of course, he's more of a flex player anyway, but, you know, maybe there's a world in which he could potentially step into the AR role, but, you know, of course, the leadership wouldn't be there if Methods was to go, so it's a bit of a strange situation, but I think a good substitute to pick up regardless. Now, let's dive into this stuff then. This, honestly, I don't even get frustrated about this anymore, just because it's so predictable what Infinity Ward are going to say and do, and honestly, they're so candid about their intentions. It's quite impressive how, like, obvious they're making their intentions here, which I suppose is good. Like, better to stab you in the front than the back, I suppose, but still, like, people are reading this thing and come on, lads, because all the feedback from Beta Weekend 1 was like, okay, look, the game plays pretty well. There's a few things that are a problem with it, though, like, you know, the mini-map, right? Dead Silence, for example, like, a lot of course, the entire competitive scene, but also a vast majority of the casual scene on the Reddit and stuff were pretty on board with the idea that, like, yes, look, we want to go back to what Call of Duty used to be. Infinity Ward have said, yeah, thanks for all the feedback, and this is our response. And, I mean, yeah, Infinity Ward are basically protecting all of these boys in the bottom right-hand side, as Crow points out, from anyone who's actually any decent at the game. And it's very clear what Infinity Ward's intention is here, but it's frustrating because in order to make this game competitively viable, again, it's going to have to be very different from the base game. It also means that, you know, I really enjoyed playing just regular, like Black Ops 3, Black Ops 4, I would just hop into public matches and play them for a long time and have a great time. You just can't do that nowadays. And, like, I just miss being able to do that, to be honest. And I'm like, again, I'm just thinking, do I even buy this year's game, right? If Search and Destroy Game Battles is viable, then maybe I will buy it, but I don't even know if I will buy it at this point, because I know that pubs are not going to be a good time. So they responded to this, and I mean, it's actually, like, this, I don't really get too frustrated, as I say, anymore, because it's just so expected, but it's just remarkable the dissonance between these two statements. So firstly, minimap dot rules. Currently in the Modern Warfare 2 beta, we only show enemy player dots when a UAV is active. The design reason for this is that we do not want to punish players for firing their weapons. I don't know if they've heard of this really great attachment called a silencer or a suppressor, been around for quite a long time, that does exactly that. If you don't want to get punished for firing, you slap an attachment on, that keeps you silent on the minimap. It's kind of a crazy phenomenon, right? We also want players to actively search out the origin of gunshots versus just traveling directly to where the dot is on the minimap. We continue to gather feedback on how the game is, so they might still take further feedback on this, but they're very clear that everyone said change it, and they've said, no, we're not changing it, these are our reasons, so fair play. Now, this is what I thought was funny, really, because they say, we don't want to punish players for firing their weapons, but on the other side of it, they very clearly say, we do want to punish players for rushing at speed, as they say here. We believe it is important for the game health that rushers are not able to move at high speeds without consequence. So, like, and therefore they're not bringing it in as a perk. They might maybe turn down the actual loudness of the footsteps, right, so that it's not so easily heard for players that are just camping out, getting ready to go. But, I mean, yeah, crazy, like, how obvious they're making their discussion here. And loads of reaction to this, of course. Even Karma says, the 3-time world champ, Connor's red dots appear on the minimap since I started playing in COD 3. It makes me so mad they're removing it. Silencers exist, right? COD turns into a, you know, hide and go seek, not a fun arena shooter. Could not agree more with what Karma is saying here. And also even Charlie Intel was saying, look, if it's really so bad to these kind of casual players to have the dots on the minimap, why did it take the developers 15 years to realize it? Or is it just, you know, is it just Infinity Ward's being what Infinity Ward do nowadays, right? And of course, even as TV says, hey guys, we looked at the feedback from week 1 and decided that we don't care. We're going to keep it the same because it helps sub 1KD players based on our internal stats. This is what I don't understand as well, right? There's skill-based matchmaking in the game that is surely designed to protect newer and more casual and worse players, but yet they also get protected by all this other stuff, which just makes the gameplay experience much worse for players who are actually any good and get into those higher skill-based matchmaking lobbies. So yeah, I don't know. I don't want to talk too much about it. Everyone's obviously given their opinion already. aBeZy says it's all about the safe space nowadays for the casual players, and you know, to the detriment of the actual quality of the game, I would say, and especially from how it might play from a competitive perspective. And look, I think we might be able to find a way to turn on the dots on the minimap for competitive, but it's like, look, we don't really want to have to change the game. The idea is that the competitive scene plays the same game as is actually in regular play, but again, there's going to be probably another massive difference with dots appearing on the minimap in competitive, because I think you can turn it on. Even as Octane goes on to say, I'm genuinely so confused at the disconnect from players to developers. Public opinion on every single issue in COD is known, yet they blatantly choose to polarize the community, right? Which I think is kind of fair enough, because it's very clear what the feedback has been on Reddit and other forums from not just the competitive scene and the casual scene on, you know, what should happen here, right? And even Joe DeLuca, Merck, says it gets even worse now because you can't unlock Ghost for ages because it's now part of that new stupid perk system where you unlock the big perks like 5 minutes into the game. It's just an absolute shambles, to be honest. So I actually think the gameplay could have some promise for, you know, search and destroy, competitive action, stuff like that. But yeah, for pubs, I know it's just chalked for another season or another 2 seasons, right? Until Trek comes along again. And even as Crone says, when the competitive and the casual scene are agreeing on something, you know something's wrong. But, you know, still, they seem adamant they are not changing anything at all. Even TJ is like, look, no red dots on the minimap in real life. I like it, right? Keep it as it is. So absolute mess, to be honest. And as Cammy goes, no expectations, no disappointments. I feel like a lot of fans, including myself, really have this mindset nowadays. It's like, look, I have no expectations for Infinity Ward to deliver. When they don't, I'm not upset. But it's still kind of annoying the way it's actually worked out. Now, this is maybe the only explanation that actually might convince Infinity Ward to change their minds. And if you think about it, it's actually a very good one. If you have no dots on the minimap, if you've got players who are, you know, maybe they have hearing difficulties or hearing impairments from the perception of, you know, video game accessibility, which surely should be, you know, an important factor for Activision and Infinity Ward, you're really taking strides against that, right? Because, you know, if players are, you know, therefore, you know, have these disabilities, then if you can't see the dots on the minimap, where are they getting shot from? They have no idea. Like, so it's actually a very good point, I think, given Paradox, that, you know, for a significant portion of the player base, you're actually completely taking away their ability to actually figure out where the enemies are. I'm sure this is a horrible experience for players like this, right, with no red dots on the minimap, unless they get the UAV, which, you know, of course, then the UAV spam becomes absolutely immense, right? So, I mean, yeah, honestly, I thought it was a great point there from Paradox, in fairness. And there's even this from Ghost of Hope, as he mentions, that, like, as he said, why reinvent the wheel on this? They're now investigating more ways to visually differentiate enemies and friendlies outside of the standard nameplates above their heads. Like, why would we change that? It's very clear. The green nameplate is my teammates. The red nameplate above his head is the red teammate. Are they going down the realism route that in real life you don't get the nameplate above the enemy's head? I don't get it, right? But sometimes the enemies are so hard to spot, and with no red, like, name tag above their head, you can't even see them through the gun smoke sometimes. So it's like, why do we need to change this? Give me an explanation for why it needs to be changed after 15 years of Call of Duty, and maybe, like, I can find an explanation to defend it, but I just don't understand. Now, this is the only potential, out of all the stuff we've discussed, positive aspect on the slide cancelling, because obviously some of us want slide cancelling to stay. I'd personally prefer to see it either gone or made much easier for the hands of the pro players, but I would like to see a year without slide cancelling. So they say this: sentiment around the removal of slide cancelling remains positive. We are aware of the workarounds, which of course Shotzzy discovered rather quickly, and are contemplating how to handle it for weekend 2 of the beta. Additionally, we have some other slide changes for launch, which will make the movement feel a bit more fluid and snappy. So that, I think, is honestly a good sign. To me, I would prefer the game to play without the slide, just, you know, jumping around, bunny hopping stuff. I think it'd be nice to see for a season and get rid of the slide cancel. The workaround, apparently, they seem rather committed to getting rid of the slide cancelling. So at least in my opinion, that's probably a good sign, but others might disagree. And it's not like, well, of course, they can say they're removing it. Whether they actually can is another question entirely. So yeah, definitely tweet your thoughts in the comment section below. As even Landon points out right here, I definitely do miss the days of logging on to Black Ops 2 and saying, look, go easy on the Christmas noobs. We know you won't, when the COD games were built with catering to all sorts of players in mind, and also kind of, well, trying to prioritize the rewards of actually getting good at the game. So it is what it is. And just to mention this real quick, this was from the Texas Rangers OpTic event last night. I mean, look at Scump doing this absolute heater here. He even drops a cartwheel as well. He's just got those athletic genes. His father, of course, was like a baseball pro for a long period of time as well. So pretty cool stuff. And some fan even came up to him with this, actually, the Paris Legion Scumpy thing, and he got it signed as well. So yeah, maybe there is I mean, there's no future in this, because obviously Paris is no longer a thing. Rest in peace. Very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, hit the like button, tell us on YouTube, God, this is a good video. Others like you should see it as well. And I'll grow the competitive Call of Duty community. I think, as always, take care, and I'll see you next time.